Today is part 2 of my colored pencil demonstration of these flowers. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. We are finishing up this drawing today. The supplies that I've used are listed below in the video description. I have an adult coloring page that goes along with this, so you can either use that as a line drawing if you want to practice drawing this one yourself, or you can use it to actually color. If you're supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial is available for you now. Now we will get onto this tutorial. So starting off, I am back to these roses and I'm doing them the same way that I did last week. I'm first outlining that edge. I'm filling in my leaves because it is really easy to mistake a leaf for a flower petal. So by blocking those in first, it makes it easier for me to keep my place. So again, going back to the flower itself, I'm outlining the edge. I'm actually going to come back through. I used a dark sepia for some of the shadows inside that rose. And once I got more roses in, I realized I did not like how that looked. So I used a faber-castell ink eraser, erased the insides, you'll see this later on, and did some adjustments. You want to think of all of this in terms of abstract shapes. If you're trying to think, I'm drawing a flower, it can get really frustrating. Look at the shapes that you're copying from your reference photo. And on flowers, the nice thing with these is that they're very forgiving. If you don't draw it absolutely perfect, no one's going to notice the difference unless you show someone your reference photo. So here again, I blocked in my leaves first, and then I went around the edge of the rose. Now for the edges, I did use a little bit more pressure than I normally do, just to make sure that they were a little bit crisper than the rest of it. I don't want fuzzy edges here, so I pushed a little bit harder, which worked here because those roses are outlined with a heavy border of a brighter pink. And you'll see I keep working over other areas that I've done, brightening up the magenta flowers next to them, doing little details on the purple flowers. While I wait for the paint thinner to dry, I will usually work on another area, just add touch-ups and details as needed. I get a lot of questions asking how I get my whites to be so white. If you want an area to actually stay white, you need to let the paper show through. You are never going to get it back to completely white if you've put colored pencil down first. At least not if you're using the paint thinner, because the way that the odorless mineral spirits work, they are dissolving that color into the paper. So you're basically staining the paper. You can use the eraser like I've done to lift some of the pigment off so that you can get more pigment to stick, but you're not going to go back to completely white. The white pencils that I use are the Luminance white and the Derwent Drawing Chinese white. They are some of the more opaque white pencils that I found. I'm using magentas to shade the inside of, or a deep burgundy I should say, to shade the inside of these flowers. I'm using raw umber 10% with the luminance to get the base of my shadow under the flowers, and then I layer purple or pink or whatever colors are around it on that shadow. I blend it out with the Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner, and then I take my Derwent Drawing Chinese white and go over the shadow, which softens everything out. And that's how I've done the shadows throughout this entire piece, the shadows underneath the flowers. So for the sunflower, notice that I went through and blocked in the leaves again, because if I didn't, I would probably have colored them in yellow, mistaking them for flower petals. Getting some details over here again. Starting on this section, I've again blocked in my green for the leaves, and then I've gone around with the black, the polychromos black, because that sharpens to such a fine point, and I'm doing the little teeny tiny details. And for these type of flowers, the purple ones that I'm working on, they do not have to be perfect. This is kind of like organized scribbling. I'm not too worried. I just need to copy the general feel, the general movement of my reference photo for those. But I'm not going to take the time to make every single little thing exact. Not for something like this, because again, no one's going to notice the difference unless you show them your reference photo. So this is very much like when I do animal fur. I want to go for close, but I don't have to have every strand exact. So onto the inside of the sunflower. I've started with green, I've got a gold color, then brown, and then I'm shading the other side on the left with black over that. I'm going to blend that out with the paint thinner, Then I'm taking green on top. Now when you are using the paint thinner or the odorless mineral spirits to blend, make sure you're letting that dry in between layers. Otherwise you can damage the paper and the pencil really doesn't stick well to it. I'm going to add several layers until I get this dark enough, but I don't want it to be one solid color. It is really important that I get lots of shades inside that sunflower, not just solid brown or solid black. Now for the flower, the petals themselves, I've started with a light yellow, and now I'm going to use browns, oranges, and magentas to shade these. I'll even come back through with darker purple for some of the shading. I don't want to use black to shade the yellow or it turns into this muddy green. I'm going to layer all of these colors, lots of shades in there. And this is another area. I don't want to use just solid yellow or solid orange for the flower petals or it will look flat too. So I blended that out with my odorless mineral spirits. I took a white pencil and added some detail on the inside of the sunflower just while I was waiting for the outside petals to dry. Now I'm back to the outside petals, adding even more orange and magenta. And while that dries, I'm starting to block in the next flower. Now for this piece, I used between 60 and 70 different colors. There are a lot of colors in here. This isn't something where you'll just take the right shade of purple and everything's good. You have to layer a lot of colors to get this look. Now I've used white over the sunflower petals, and then I'm coming back through and adding detail with all of the other colors. I'm doing little dots with the black for the inside area. That had to happen after I finished with the sunflower petals though. If I would have put those little black dots and then tried to work around them, the black would have smudged into the yellow. So in order to keep that from happening, I first finished the flower petals on the sunflower, and then I did the little black circles that overlapped them. Onto this last flower, I'm going to continue shading. I've used an even lighter yellow for my base, and I'm using shades of green, purple, magenta, and orange, even some browns and golds to shade the flower itself. I don't want one solid color anywhere or it'll look very flat. You can see the first few times that I blend out with odorless mineral spirits, it just looks fuzzy and kind of almost dirty. It doesn't have that nice clean look. I'm just going to keep layering until I get it where I want it. And I've got to go a little bit darker than what I want my end result to be so that I can come back on top with the white and do a little bit of burnishing to give it the petal a slightly shiny look. But if I don't have my petals dark enough, that white won't show up. Now when you blend the odorless mineral spirits over yellow, it tends to give you a very dark color. Once it dries, it lightens up a lot. But it does seem to darken that a little bit while it's still wet, more so than what I've noticed from other colors. So the same thing here with that green. It was lots of shades of greens and yellows, not just one shade. I'm taking this darker burgundy color for the inside areas, really darkening that up. Now I'm taking pinks that I had used in the roses. My reference photo did not have those pinks on this flower, but in order to make this flower fit in with everything else, I've added that pink and it pulls everything together. It keeps everything within this piece very nicely fit together so it doesn't look like these flowers were just grabbed from another photo. I'm even going to use a little bit of this pink on the shadow underneath these flowers. Again, just making sure that I pull everything together. And it's not something where you're going to look at it and go, oh wow, that's a pink flower. I just want hints of it. I want it to be very subtle. So again, I used that lighter gray, the raw umber 10% first for my shadow, and then layered the purples and greens and yellows over that. So here I come on top with the white, and you can see how nicely that white shows up now because I got the other colors dark enough.
Now that said, the white's not white white. If I would have wanted it to stay white, I would have needed to let the paper show through. But that white does lighten it up quite a bit and it gives it this nice shiny look. After I get a few final details with the dots here, I want to make sure these dots are not all the same size or the same darkness, so I'm getting variation in there. After these, I'm going to put my reference photo away and just do little detail work on this piece, figuring out what I can add or change contrast-wise, color-wise, anything to make my piece stronger. So I don't want to depend on the reference photo for every single thing. Sometimes you've got to back away from it at that very end, and I do this on most pieces. Back away from my reference photo and decide what does my piece need to be improved on. Don't forget, if you guys want the copy of the adult coloring page, you can head over to my website. I will have a card pop up where you can check that out and a link in the video description.
Thanks for watching. Again, if you are supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial is available for you now. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, art Q&A videos every Thursday, and artist vlogs each weekend. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. All of those social media sites are linked below in the video description where you keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I do have a 5-minute real-time clip of one of these flowers posted over on Facebook now. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So for my next colored pencil piece, I'm going to be using the powder blender stuff again and trying something surreal, which is not something I typically do with colored pencil. Yay! I'm going to be drawing the earth. And I'm going to do it the same way that I paint, layering dark to light, which is so backwards for colored pencil. So it could be an absolute failure or it could be amazing. I have no idea. But I'm going to drag you guys along for that ride.